Welcome. So today I'm going to talk to you about how do you become more radiant? How do you become more damn empowered? And how do you have a sense of renewed passion for the relationship you're in, or to actually create a healthy, intimate relationship in midlife? So, oh my gosh, I have been in this relationship business for 15 years. I have been through so many iterations of dating online and offline and COVID and not COVID and internet safety and catfishing and all of it. And what I want to tell you is there are some very clear reasons why it's not working for you. And a lot of it is this. And as a dating coach for, a long time before I kind of expanded, I feel like I'm kind of telling a secret on all the dating coaches, but this is the truth. There is a misconception, right, that is marketed, that is sold to you about relationship, right? Like if you just do this one thing, right, this one magic mechanism, then, you're going to meet this amazing person, or you're going to reignite the spark in your relationship, or you're going to know if he's the one, or if you should break up with him, or you should keep it. And we are told that if we know this one thing or do this one strategy, then, like all our problems will be solved. And I'm here to tell you that that is a cover up, because the real work that needs to be done to feel radiant, to feel empowered, to actually unleash the passion and the spark inside of you is doing a 3-step process called Reveal, Release, Rejuvenate. And so while strategy is super important, if you don't do the inner work, not just inner work, the inner work that is the right inner work for specific unlocking of your emotional availability, because probably you're emotionally unavailable if you're not meeting the right men, or your relationship feels dead. And so that is really what it takes. Now, let me just explain this to you. How do I know this? Because I was doing it, and I was doing it because I literally didn't know any better, and I was a sheep, right? I was like, if I say this and I promise this, then people are going to come, and then I can finally help them do the work. And you know what? It was true, right? But the truth is that once they came, they were like, oh God, this is so much more than a dating program. This is like, I'm figuring out who I am. And what I really did was I helped people fall in love with themselves so they could find someone to love. And so how do you do that, right? Because self-love is like thrown around like, haphazardly, in my opinion. What the hell does that even mean? Self-care? Does it mean like you get a manicure? Does it mean you don't beat yourself up? Does it mean that you don't give a shit? Like you have boundaries, like you're a badass boss babe? Like what does that mean? So I'm going to explain all of that to you. But what I want you to understand is that the reason why nothing is working for you is that if you do a strategy and you don't do the inner pieces, the right inner pieces, then all the strategy in the world will not work. Number one. And number two, if you get lucky and you meet someone, right? The strategy works, let's say, and you don't have the inner part handled, you will self-sabotage. You will be with the wrong person. You will find yourself in a repeat pattern of what I call same guy, different face. Okay? So the old way of doing it, right, is pick a strategy, right? Like I'm going to date doing this app. I'm going to use this personality typing system. Right? Okay, so all of those, again, don't focus on the inner piece. If you don't do the inner work, that is the right inner work, what happens is you create, and this is really important, write this down, underline it, put it on a Post-it note. You create awareness of why your behaviors or who you attract is in place, but that's all. Awareness does not equal transformation. Awareness without action is entertainment. I think Mary Morrissey said that the first time when I heard it, who's a great coach. So all the awareness, all the therapy, all the work that you've been doing, good. It's so good that you've been doing the work. But understanding your patterns or what attachment style you have is not enough to rewire your brain so that you start to be more who you are, and that you do fall in love with yourself, and that you actually then implement the right strategy. Okay? And so what I want you to think about is, when has just talking about your problem or underlining something that resonates changed anything? That's the old way. It hasn't. Or knowing what your patterns are and then affirming the positive, right? Be confident. I am enough. I am worthy, right? Affirming it, saying it in yoga, saying it in meditation, but at the subconscious level, not believing it, again, is not transformation. You're trying to convince yourself of something you don't believe in, really. That is why nothing you've done really solves the problem to the point that you have a different result. Again, if you feel better, that's amazing. I don't want you to just feel better. I want you to have an actual tangible result, because we didn't come this far just to get this far. Okay? So when you think about, and I'm going to tell you the steps, but when you think about this old way, you can see how you can stay above the surface, and the problem you think you have, which is the apps or dating or your husband or your partner, is not really the problem you have. The problem you really have is what I call the last 10%. Because 90% of you is awesome. There is an unconscious 10% that is keeping you stuck. And you have not been able to discover it up until now, because there is a part of you that doesn't feel emotionally safe to handle it. So what you have to do is you have to create a space where you feel safe enough to not only understand the truth, have awareness, but actually transform it, to go into the pain in a way in which you can be with that pain and hold that pain along with possibility, so that you can actually release the pain and be who you really are, free from the burdens and the hurts and the resentments of the past. Right? So you have to uncover the 10%. So let me tell you what. Now, I don't know what your unconscious 10% is, because I don't know you yet, but I've worked with enough people that I can give you some ideas of what it might be. So for a lot of people, it's masculine energy, right? So masculine energy looks like needing to control, being focused on the goal, needing to know what's happening, being bossy, being pushy, always needing to be right, always having to know, right? It's this idea that we are using the energy that has moved us forward in our career, in our relationships. And when we have masculine energy, I want you to understand this has nothing to do with like being feminine. Like, you probably like looking amazing in dresses, you dress feminine, you think you're being feminine physically, but your energy, right? The energy that you're leading with is leaking. That 10% is leaking. And men maybe can't describe it, but what they will say is there's just no chemistry, right? Or something felt off. Because the truth is, a guy doesn't want to make out with a dude in a skirt. And when there's not the polarity in the relationship of masculine and feminine energy, it doesn't work, right? The problem is, most women who have a lot of masculine energy want a certain type of guy, and they don't attract that certain type of guy because that's a masculine energy. So then they attract men with a more feminine energy, and that doesn't feel right either. Because masculine energy isn't your true nature. It's a part of you. But what we want is to find that perfect sort of whole version, what I call sexy alpha femme. Like, you can be an alpha, but how do you embody who you really are, which is both. Okay? So for some people, the unconscious 10% is the masculine energy. For some people, it's the pawn energy. And if you think about a pawn, you think about, the person who wants to be picked, the person who doesn't feel like they're enough. I call it pick me energy, right? Like, I hope he likes me. If I do more, if I be more, if I make him happy, if I minimize myself, if I put my needs last, if I give him everything, then maybe he'll be happy, then he'll love me, right? And when we're in pawn energy, we attract men who unconsciously make us feel like shit, right? Because, and believe me, I've been both in my story over the last many, many years. When I was single before I met my husband 15 years ago. And so I overcompensated. I was like, pick me energy. And then I was like, did some personal development work. And I was like, okay, I'm a badass bitch. No one's going to fuck with me. And then I just met all these other kind of wrong men. So I have to come back to our whole self, right? Our authentic self, which is not pick me energy, not pawn energy, and not masculine energy, right? And so, and for some people, their unconscious 10% is that they push people away, right? It's like they're constantly in a place of self-sabotage. So they'll meet the right guy, but then they don't know how to receive. They don't know how to actually be in a healthy relationship. So that unconscious 10% that doesn't feel like they deserve it, or doesn't feel enough, or doesn't know what healthy relationship looks like, or feels like if they receive, they're being disempowered, or they have a fear from an old relationship. All of that, bottom line, ladies, is it's leaking into your current relationship or to your dating. And men can sense it, right? And so what we want to do is, in order to feel radiant and empowered and just renew the passion of who we really are and put it out there and feel hopeful and excited and alive and enlivened in middle age, is that we have to be who we really are. So how do you do that? How do you uncover the 10%? Because once you actually unlock that 10%, that's when lightning strikes. So can you imagine how easy it is when you figure that out, and you don't have just an awareness of it, but you actually heal it, and then you come into your whole self? Like everything changes, right? So how do you do that? So there's 3 steps. Number 1 is you have to reveal. Revealing is actually going in to that place with a combined approach of cognitive awareness, yes, but experiential somatic work, so that the traumas that are in your physical body are actually healed, right? And that you have a process in place to actually discover who you really are and understand that, like reveal that. Who are you without all the crap, all the stories, all the defense mechanisms, all the barriers, all the guards, right? So that you can create enough emotional safety with yourself that you can feel safe. Like, it's okay to feel safe if you are safe, and be vulnerable and put yourself out there, the real you, right? So in that reveal stage, you reveal what needs to be released and really who you are, and how to connect to that, so that you are rejection proof without having to be masculine or pawn energy, right? Okay, cool. So the next piece is then you have to release it. So releasing it for the last time. Again, talking about it, having an awareness of it, highlighting it in a book, understanding, listening, and being like, oh yeah, that's amazing. No. So release actually is going through and doing some very specific processes whereby you are able to heal because you've rewired neural pathways. And one of the most important things that I can teach you is this understanding of polarity. And I think this is missing from like 99% of all the coaching that I've seen out there. Because what we're taught is that, we have these things that we need to like reveal, that we have to get rid of them. And then once we get rid of them, then we're cured. And that's not real. So what I want for you to understand in the release process is this understanding of polarity. Because parts of you have been hurt. Parts of you have experienced trauma, loss, and grief. And always and forever, for real, parts of you will constantly be triggered by those things. So there are times in your life where parts of you won't feel enough. Parts of you will feel like it's never going to go your way. Parts of you feel like you're unlovable or unworthy. Owning that those parts of you are there doesn't mean that it's true. It is creating grace and self-compassion, just a relief, right? Like, yeah, those parts of me are there, without shaming or blaming yourself for having them. Because when you've done the work and then those thoughts come back, most people I know, then they just go into a spiral beating themselves up. I should know better, right? Like just trying to shut it down. It does not work. So what do? You hold that, the energy of those parts, and you also know that parts of you know that you are enough. Parts of you know there's nothing to fix. Parts of you know you're already healed. Parts of you know that you are lovable, right? And when you master this experiential process of combining breath work with polarity, and you practice this on a regular basis, it just becomes like this, and you're like, oh, parts of me, right? And it's just freedom. You're creating freedom for your brain so that you can make a choice. And you choose. If there are parts of me that don't feel enough and parts of me know that I am worthy, in this moment, which is true consciousness and freedom, in presence, you're creating presence through that breath. You choose, you make conscious choices around how you're going to show up. And the reason that you can do that is because you have also done part 3, which is rejuvenate. And rejuvenate is actually learning the new skills that one needs when they are radiant and empowered and have a renewed passion in their relationships. And you know what? I've had so many clients tell me like, oh, I cannot believe no one taught me this. No one taught me how to communicate authentically from my feminine. No one taught me how to set boundaries and hold them in a way that's loving without having to be a bitch, right? No one taught me how to receive. No one taught me how to manage conflict. No one taught me how to negotiate in relationship. No one taught me how to be free from my patterns. How do I create a shared life vision? How do I find out if this person has the same goals as I do? Like, no one taught me how to actually date with dignity and intention and make it really efficient, right? So when you actually then add in a strategy that works, that's really when the magic happens. Right? And it's not magic. I'm not going to tell you you're going to meet your man in 27 days. What I'm going to tell you is that you become whole, you become aligned. All that you're leaking, all that you're putting out is your authentic self, your joy, your positivity, what you're looking for. And from that place, you start making new choices and have new behaviors. And whether you're choosing to leave the relationship you're in because now it doesn't match and this person can't show up for you because they're not focused on their own growth as well as the growth of the relationship, you have the courage to do that, right? Or by showing up more of who you are and having these conversations, your partner actually now meets you because you're not always in that masculine energy or that pawn energy. You change the dynamic, and that changes the dynamic of the relationship, right? So all of this is about putting into place those 3 steps: revealing, releasing, rejuvenate, and constantly having that on rinse and repeat, so that instead of like up-leveling your relationships, you're in-leveling, meaning that you are going deeper inward and you are bringing more of who you are inside and expressing it more in your relationships, in your life, from a place of empowerment, that creates that radiant energy, that vitality, that sexiness, that confidence, that magnetizes everything, including the kind of loving relationship that you want. So if you would like some help to figure out what your 10% is and then reveal, release, and rejuvenate, absolutely book a call. The link to have that call is in the description. I look forward to helping you create the loving relationship that you desire, because it's there. If you desire it, it's worth going for. Mwah.